Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show without the overlay. There we go. Boy, oh boy. Welcome to another exciting installment of TED Excellence, the show where I can never get it right even after years of doing it. Kind of like life. And I come to you live from Crater Valley on the moon with Dog Cat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to Thursday. Terrific Thursday. Yes, it has been a red letter day, everyone. If you did not know, well, I'll tell you in a moment. Before I get there, who's joining me on this exciting day? Very exciting day. Noah Asensio, hello. Tony Giff, hello. Tyrannus Alexandrius, the Invictus Lich, hello. The Useless Cook, hello. Mike R, hello. Shell D, hello. Non-Vitae Rex, hello. Nathaniel Taylor, hello. John Miller, hello. Derek LaRue, holy cats, man. As soon as it'll come up here, thank you so much again, as always, for your continued generosity and support. I really, really, really appreciate it. Hope you're having a good day overall for a Thursday and onwards into the weekend. Hope you enjoy the show. Thank you. Who else is here? Corey Suzuki, hello. Keldrick, hello. Shadowclaw, hello. It's a llama, hello. Angelverse, hello. Attack Alpaca, hello. Decode, hello. Mike R, if I didn't already say hello, I think I might have, but if I didn't, I did now. Hello. BG, hello. Mr. Tickle Trunk. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for the My Hero Dog Cat Fox. Oh, Dog Cat Fox.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, a Sinatra Dog Cat Fox. Thank you so much, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Appreciate it. Advocatus Diaboli, hello. And I think that's everyone I see. If I missed you, if you're lurking, if you're in the future, hello. All right. Yes, it has been a busy, busy day for little old me. Not just because of current events, but also because of work and month-end billing stuff. And I've just been all over the place. As a result of that, I forgot to do the poll for tonight's bingo card. So tonight's bingo card, as Bridget suggested in the Discord chat earlier, is bingo card A. A for affirmative action. Yes, today the Supreme Court of the United States effectively did away with race-conscious admissions in colleges and universities. Therefore, colleges and universities in the United States can no longer, if they opted to begin with, use race as a factor of value in assessing someone for admission into higher education, which has caused no end of consternation amongst people who wanted to perpetuate a necessity for assessing people on their skin color. They might try to run around it. They might try to couch their language. They might try to say it's something else, but ultimately that's what they're arguing for. And in my opinion, it's not a principle on which I wish my country to continue promoting. And consequently, thankfully, the Supreme Court ruled in a way that I agree with, and very much so. I read the full majority opinion this morning as soon as it was posted. You can find that video on my channel right now. Later on in the day, I took a look at some of the fallout from universities and other individuals and Supreme Court justices themselves. It's been quite a day. It's been quite a day. And it's been quite a day primarily because the language within the majority opinion, and I said this several times over the course of the stream, point by point knocked down many of the arguments in favor of things, not only just affirmative action, but primarily from my YouTube experience, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Yes, if you had listened to the oral arguments last October before the Supreme Court regarding the two cases that were ruled on today, and you listened to the lawyers defending affirmative action and defending the colleges employing it, you could be forgiven for thinking you were listening to one of these standard DEI promotional videos that I've been looking at for the last 7 years, because the arguments, the rhetoric, the language used in support of affirmative action is, in some instances, verbatim, the kind of stuff I've heard from diversity consultants, chief diversity officers, CEOs, educators, and so on for years now. And it's always been this weird kind of legal alchemy to me how DEI, which is not a college program, and companies, which are not institutions of higher learning, have effectively used affirmative action arguments to justify their own strange and backwards and regressive policies, as far as I'm concerned. But now, if there was, as I've said, if there was some kind of weird legal gray area for DEI to be sort of like the corporate cousin of affirmative action, that's gone by the wayside. The Supreme Court didn't leave a whole lot of room to maneuver if you were going to try to use affirmative action to shore up your DEI program. But all of that being said, my question before the decision was dropped today, because I had to pick my TEDx yesterday, my question was, well, if the court decides against affirmative action, or if the court makes some other kind of ruling, I'd be curious to know, after I've read the majority opinion, what would happen if I then looked at a relatively recent argument for DEI policies and to see, well, now that we know what the court has decided, how would these DEI policies line up with what the court's ruling says? Now, I read through the majority opinion, again, out loud live, so I have most of it, or most of the salient points still lodged in my brain. So I have for us tonight a presentation from, I think it was the end of 2021, when it was posted to TEDx. So it's not exactly fresh off the presses or anything, but I have a feeling it'll probably have all the high points. And it is to say the importance of DEI work in schools and communities. So, yeah, we're going to see what our speaker has to say about it. And as we go through his points or arguments, as becomes relevant, I'll intercede, or interject, I should say, with whatever is in my mind regarding today's decision. Now, obviously, today's decision pertains to affirmative action. But again, the same points made to justify affirmative action are baked into the whole DEI apparatus. And both the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg, in articles that I read in the lead up to today's decision, underscored that point quite effectively, I thought. So with all of that being said, I think I might be missing. Do I have... I don't have the fundraisers on hand because I'm a lazy jerk. So if anybody, because I think Keeverdam might be busy tonight, if anybody happens to have the fundraisers handy or can go retrieve them from a previous stream and post them to the chat. Oh man, I'm a terrible host. I apologize. I think I take Keeverdam for granted. Keeverdam, wherever you are, I apologize. I should be more prepared. I hope you're having a good evening. Anyway, everybody, let's get this show going. Let's see. This TEDx clocks in at just over 11 minutes and 30 seconds. So I'm going to start off with a few seconds for a sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear it. Remember, bingo card A. Links are in the description. Get your bingo cards ready, and we'll be off to the races.
My name is Nathaniel Rouse, and I'd like to provide you with a quick public service announcement about...
Oh boy, a public service announcement. You guys hear that okay? Let me know in the chat real quick. I think I got everything set up. Derek, if you can, I appreciate it. I've got too many windows open, and I dislike dead air if I can avoid it on a broadcast. Sound is good, says Derek. Ooh, a PSA. Sounds good, says Micah. Okay, I'm going to start. I just cut him off a little bit, so I'm going to back up. Here we go.
Rouse, and I'd like to provide you with a quick public service announcement about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in schools and the positive impacts on school communities.
Okay, positive impacts on school communities. Okay, so DEI as pertains to schools. And remember, DEI is the twin, cousin, whatever of affirmative action.
A little bit of context about me.
Okay.
I've been a public educator, as you've heard, for over 26 years, and I've been very blessed to have served students and school communities in a variety of ways.
Okay, 26 years on the job. That seems like a relatively expert territory to me. Ebony Williams, hello. And anybody else that I missed in the meantime? Smudge, good evening. Super Koopa TV. And God Ratley, the one true God of all rats. Good evening. Well, there you go.
Starting out as a dean's assistant, a substitute teacher, and working my way through the ranks as a English teacher, dean of students, building principal, and a district leader.
Wow. Okay, that's quite the litany of accomplishments.
In fact, I was fortunate to be the principal of the school, featured in a documentary entitled America to Me that aired on Starz cable network a few years ago.
Oh, well, we got a movie star.
So let's just say I consider myself a well-seasoned educator.
Okay, well, first off, before I get too far into this, let's go over to the bingo card, because he did talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that would be the DEI square on the card. So circling diversity, equity, and inclusion. As soon as I get the correct, I need to pick a circle, not a square. Thank you, Microsoft Paint. Nothing but the best software for my bingo card. Come on now. There you go. All right. And let me go over the bingo card one time at least, before we get into it, so we all know what we're listening for. So remember this bingo card: A, collectivizes own demographic, systemic or institutional, sales pitch for product or service, childhood or family anecdote. We've already circled diversity, equity, and inclusion. Plays victim, microaggressions or unconscious bias, privilege, contradicts own point or argument, patriarchy, weightless example, wage gap, feminism, marginalized or marginalization, a list, and remember that has to be an official list, like a 1, 2, 3, or the first thing I do, or something like that. White supremacy, word salad, self-vilification or wretchedness, argumentative non sequitur, attempt to coin new buzzword or buzz phrase, mind reading or assumes motives, benevolent condescension, anecdote that probably never happened, and lastly, leaves out vital context. So far on the board, we have diversity, equity, and inclusion, and free space because, well, it's free. So here we go.
And leader.
Okay.
My other reality is this. I have lived experiences of being a student of color who navigated an American public school system that, from my perspective, is frankly not designed for people who look like me to be successful.
Well, that sounds like an affirmative action belief to me. Okay, collectivizes own demographic, circle in that one, and also systemic, institutional, because of the system and all that. Okay, so there we go. Moving on.
My parents did everything that they could to support my curiosity for learning as a child.
All right, childhood or family anecdote, circle in that one. Boy, oh boy, we're off to a good start.
And that included giving me opportunities to explore Black authors and people of color that had a positive impact on the world.
Mm-hmm.
The point I want to make here is that learning took place at home, not at school.
The learning of what? Elevating people on the basis of their skin color? I can believe it.
I can also vividly remember a time in elementary school when I was asked if I wanted to do an alternative assignment outside of class when we were going to review, those 3 or 4 paragraphs or so in social studies that focused on slavery.
Okay.
But listen, by that time, I was well into the works of Paul Laurence Dunbar, Alex Haley, James Baldwin, Dr. Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X, to name a few.
Oh, anything in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s rhetoric that might want to keep in mind when discussing DEI, but okay. And how much time should schools spend on slavery? What is the adequate, ratio of slavery education to everything else that ever happened in history?
But it didn't stop there. I also remember my father introducing me to Charles Dickens's A Tale of Two Cities, as well as John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress.
Oh, Derek in the chat. Yeah, actually, the GoFundMe for Tori has been fulfilled, so we don't need that one. Thankfully, that's a good thing. Yeah, Tori's Chromebook was paid for. And yay for that. Yay. So good. Yeah. I really should have those at hand. I don't. I'm terrible. I'll need Keeverdam to send them to me on, and I'll have to have those handy so in case of emergency I can pull the lever or something. I apologize, everybody. I should have those handy. I feel like a terrible host now. Anyway, let me back up a little bit.
I also remember my father introducing me to Charles Dickens's A Tale of Two Cities.
Charles Dickinson? Okay.
As well as John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress.
Okay.
Needless to say, my love for reading came from what I was learning at home and not at school.
If you're going to argue to me that public education is lacking, I'm right there with you. Yeah, in my early years growing up and everything, I didn't really realize it at the time, but once I started sort of having more cognizance of the quality of education I was receiving and could look back on the education I received in my earlier years, yeah, I had some good teachers. Don't get me wrong. There were some standout teachers in the course of my public education, but in the overall, yeah, no, I probably learned more at home, watching television, reading comic books, and reading things on my own time. But then, of course, I had parents that encouraged me to go beyond the limits of just what public education offered. So there you go.
Perhaps this also gives you some insight into how I eventually set my sights on a bachelor's degree in English literature.
Okay, well, English degree, I'm on board with you there, obviously. English literature, yeah, no, I didn't really. I tell you what, most of my literature classes had to do with teachers who were trying to justify their own careers to us most of the time. Of the several English teachers that I had in college, I want to say, and this is a rough estimate, like, let's say out of 6, I'm just sort of spitballing here, but out of 6, 3 of them used their own writings as course materials. I had to buy my teacher's book of poetry for the course. I mean, if you want to talk about a grift. Same thing happened with a couple of the other teachers. I ended up buying books that either they had written or they had pieces published within as part of the course materials. So quite the scam going on there in some places. But yeah, okay, you had an English degree. Well, I did too.
Which ultimately took me down the path of becoming an English teacher.
Okay, ultimately, not inevitably, because otherwise I've never been an English teacher.
However, my frustration with my particular area of study and focus was there was often no authors of color represented in my classes or curriculum.
Again, you're really not making any ground by specifying your distaste for certain skin colors. But okay, it's your show.
It was all about the classics and the experiences of people who frankly didn't look like me. So where am I going with this?
You want to discriminate what books you have in your classroom on the basis of the color of the author? Because somehow, even if someone writes a book who doesn't look like you, you can't relate to the characters, the situations, the history, the quality of the writing or anything else, because obviously you can't, because they look bad. Right? I mean, how much value do you put into aesthetics when it comes to assessing the value of people? And I understand for those of you who might be art students or something else, when I say value in relation to color and things like that, it's actually kind of a pun after a fashion. But either way, I don't know. Where do you think you think I'm going? You're going. What?
Well, to be honest,
Yeah.
I'm unpacking the realities of an education that lacked culturally responsiveness, which leads me to the PSA on the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in today's schools.
Cultural responsiveness. Okay, so anybody with a particular skin color all share the same culture. Like, if I read Charles Dickinson, then obviously Charles Dickens and I share the same culture. The world that he describes in his books, like Tale of Two Cities or Christmas Carol or something else, obviously those all obviously directly relate to my experience in my life, because Charles Dickens was white and I'm white. Is that correct? Right. If I read Solzhenitsyn, then, of course, the world that he describes is going to align with mine, because he was white and I'm white. If I read Yevgeny Zamyatin and Yevgeny Zamyatin's We, which is kind of like the Russian 1984, I could go on. But do I need to? No, because unlike our speaker, apparently, I don't assume to know something about the quality or condition of someone's existence on the basis of their skin color, or reject someone's writing or ideas on the basis of theirs, because obviously they couldn't know what I feel like.
So in my current role as the district administrator, I work in a K-12 public school district about 30 miles west of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
The school district is blessed with tremendous resources based upon the affluence of the school community, with dual language programs, Chinese immersion, and an educational learning center that should be the North Star and beacon of light for any school district who really wants to support students pre-K with special needs.
Okay, I'll I'll take your word for it because I don't know anything that goes on in the Chicago area as far as education. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. Most people, the majority who are white, also have nothing culturally in common with someone like Dickinson. Never mind, you just made point. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just so funny to me, and funny in sort of a crying clown way. When I hear somebody pushing this idea, it doesn't matter if it's this speaker or the dozens and dozens of others who have said the same things or similar to in the last several years. And this goes right to what was put into the majority opinion today, where Justice Roberts pointed out the inherent stereotyping needed for the entire affirmative action race-conscious admissions thing to exist, or at least as it has been practiced the entire time. That somehow, if you are of a particular race, you either are or are not capable of making it into college on your own merits elsewise. Right? There's an assumption of quality of a person's ability or background or whatever that is inherent to the idea of whittling everybody down simply to the basis of skin color. And then saying, oh, well, this demographic is needing and this demographic is not, or this demographic is worthy of my attention, or this one isn't. Because obviously, if I pay attention to that demographic, I'm never going to hear anything different because they're all the same. It's ridiculous on its face. No pun intended, but I'll take it. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. Again, we're descendants of immigrants. Color don't matter. I mean, we're going to find out, I guess, as we proceed here, how deep our speaker takes this. I don't know how much deeper you can go, though. But yeah, so first and foremost, his argument here aligns with something that was effectively struck down in argumentation for affirmative action in today's decision. The idea that color determines some assumption of quality of an individual, of thinking of an individual, and so on. And actually, the decision did mention specifically the idea that quality of thought being associated with skin color doesn't make any sense.
That being said, this predominantly white, affluent community has seen a shift over time, with more diversity represented in the school systems and in the schools communities.
Uh-huh.
We also have an elementary school that is predominantly Hispanic and major low income.
Okay. I don't know if that might be wage gap territory there when we start talking about economics. I'm gonna wait a bit. If it becomes a constant theme, it might already qualify. I'm just gonna give a little while. And I know I might be stretching just slightly, but when he went down the list of all of the attributes and resources available to the school district he was working in, that strikes me as a list. So I'm going to circle a list. So I got that circled on there. We'll see about wage gap as time rolls on. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk. Also, thank you for your eloquence on the topic. Mr. Tickletrunk, I don't know if you noticed, but I bumble over my words more often than not and everything else because my brain tends to be faster than my mouth, and my vocabulary sometimes doesn't align with my intent. But I appreciate the compliment either way. I try. It's an ongoing struggle to both retain my vocabulary and increase it, but then the big challenge, employ it accurately when necessary.
In total, there are 8 elementary schools, 2 middle schools,
Okay.
our pre-K early learning center, but all roads lead to one high school that houses almost 3,000 students.
I got sirens in the background. The cops are coming for me. They're coming. Or where are you going? You're going away? You're coming closer? Because depending on which direction they're turning. Okay, they're going that way. Okay, good. I think. I don't know. Anyway.
So for the purposes of tonight,
yes,
let's define what I mean by diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yay! All right, definitions often doesn't happen. All right, give me your definitions.
And inclusion.
Yeah.
Diversity speaks to people and cultures that make up our schools and communities.
No, they make up colors. You already told us this with your book selections. Unless, well, no, we already know he associates skin color with culture. So, all right, if you're going to use culture as your secret word for color, then I suppose.
Equity speaks to how we give students what they need when they need it.
No, equity speaks to equality of outcome. It speaks to artificially raising up people and artificially lowering other people to achieve a equitable outcome for everyone so that no one feels bad, that no achievement is necessary, no effort is really rewarded. Okay, but keep going.
And inclusion is the extent to which individuals feel represented, heard, or included in our spaces.
That might be as accurate a definition as you're going to get. I mean, all things considered. I don't know if that's contradicts own point. We'll wait on that one.
So with those definitions in mind, as well as some of the anecdotes I provided earlier.
Yeah, anecdotes. Speaking of anecdotes, yeah, he did play victim slightly when he was talking about his schooling and how there wasn't enough time spent on discussing slavery, and he didn't have the right color authors to read at school and so on. So I'm circling plays victim.
Let's talk about why I believe that this work is important in today's schools.
Okay.
So it's the fall of 2021.
Okay.
Almost 2 years into a national pandemic.
Yes.
In fact, there's no audience here really tonight to be mindful of the health and safety protocols.
Okay. So are you standing in an empty room or something?
Tensions that are at an all-time high across the nation as we grapple with the politicization of mask mandates, vaccinations.
Yeah.
And we've also been reminded of the racial injustice that still exists in our country.
Well, we've had it drilled into us on the basis of statistics and conspiracy theories, sure.
With the tragic murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, just to name a few.
Yeah. And those were all leveraged for the benefit of companies pushing their ESG totals.
And not just our country, but the world reacted. Unfortunately, that movement towards reconciliation was...
Whoa. Movement towards reconciliation. I don't know if you were watching the same protests I was during the course of that period of time in the summer of 2020. I don't know if you were... movement towards reconciliation. Is that what that was? That's an interesting way to put it. Okay, if you say so.
Unfortunately, that movement towards reconciliation was short-lived. A moment that started as a way to bring awareness and understanding to racial injustices that continue to exist has been challenged by the mischaracterization, of diversity, equity, inclusion efforts as indoctrination, anti-American, and divisive.
It is indoctrination. It is inherently anti-American, and it is divisive. It's indoctrinating children to believe something about themselves and others on the basis of skin color, telling them that the history of this country falls upon their shoulders in one way, shape, or form on the basis of how they relate visually to people that are long dead. It's anti-American in that it promotes the idea of valuing people on something other than their personal merit, and it's inherently divisive because, again, it divides people up on the basis of race, or depending on the implementation, gender or orientation. And valuing people of one type as being either better or more victimized or more pitiable than another type that is to be villainized and demonized and excluded. So that's not mischaracterization. It is about as accurate as you can get when you actually are honest about what DEI is promoting. And the fact that you said in your definition of diversity, you didn't mention the word race. You didn't mention the word color. You said culture. You're associating culture with race. You associated culture with race on the basis of the skin color of the authors you either read or did not read. You already knew that reading a book by an author who didn't look like you, you'd never be able to relate. And they couldn't relate to you because obviously, what? Different colors equal different species or something? Okay. Circling contradicts own point or argument. Right there, not being honest about what it is that you're promoting. Living in a dream world, I'm afraid.
School board meetings across the country have become the new battleground as these topics have dominated the local and national spotlight.
Yes, parents are paying more attention to what schools are trying to push to their children without their knowledge or consent. It's true. And if you're wondering if I'm just crazy, I know it's nuts. Minnesota elementary school racial affinity groups. I did a whole video on it. An elementary school in Minnesota, racial affinity groups with big smiles. We're going to split up our student body on the basis of race. Never mind Brown v. Board of Education. No, that's nothing. That's nothing. We're going to do Plessy v. Ferguson all over again. It's the modern day, everybody.
So as I think about why DEI work is important, I can't help but to think about my own lived experiences in education and the countless other experiences I've heard along the way from Black and brown families about not feeling connected to schools.
Well, that sounds like a personal problem. Oh, Derek LaRue, thank you. I think you got it. Okay, let me get those. Let's see, can I get those as links? No, I can't get, that's not what I want. No, I want to copy that message there. Can I get that? Am I allowed to? Yes. Okay, let's see if this, why aren't those showing up as links? Is it because there's no HTTP in front? That's probably it. Okay, 1 second here, guys. Sorry, apologies. Let me see if I can't get these things squared away here real quick. And then that, and then that, and maybe. Yes, no, yes. Okay, good. Thank you, Derek. Okay, pin that. Okay, so guys, at the top of the chat box, you'll see some links to some GoFundMes and some fundraisers. I missed one. Dang it. Can I edit that? Am I allowed to edit that? I'm not allowed to edit that. Okay, well, you might have to copy paste that second one there. Sorry, but anyway, actually, you know what? Never mind. I'm going to just, I can't now. Ah, dang it. Okay. Oh, anyway, so at the top of the chat box, links to the fundraisers for Moonshock and Angry Illinoisian and Maddie and Alyssa. And so please take a look at those. Apologies for being so sloppy with it. But anyway, please take a look at those. Donate if you can. If you can't donate, that's fine. But if you can share those onto social media, that would be appreciated. So thank you. And thank you, Derek, for getting those to me. All right. Where were we again? Sorry. DEI is what now?
About not feeling connected to schools or the school communities.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, some families are intimidated by schools and how they operate.
In what way?
Why is that?
Yeah.
Because when they come to schools, they see nothing that represents them or their culture.
Okay. And so how would you solve for this problem? Or how are you solving for this problem? You're the guy in charge.
Sometimes they don't even see people who look like them.
Okay. How would you solve for that problem? By what mechanism would you solve that particular problem?
So what we choose to celebrate or not matters.
How about we just celebrate academic achievement? What if in a school we just celebrated learning things first and foremost and didn't elevate or make somebody special or make somebody preferential for anything other than their academic achievement? What if we did that? I know it's crazy. It's crazy if you tried to make schools culturally neutral, student to student, and just focused on academics. I know, nutty idea.
And most important, when the school curriculum does not reflect the cultures and experiences of its students or the world around them, there's a definite disconnect.
Okay, how would you represent my culture and experience? I mean, I'd be really curious to know if I walked into a room and let's just say I time traveled back and I was suddenly a K through 12 student again. I'm 12 years old. I walk into, or no, not 12. Well, it's almost 12. I'm 6 years old. Sure. 6 years old, walk into the room. You see me as a tow-headed, and tow as in T-O-W, like blonde, because I used to be a blonde when I was a little kid. Now I'm, dark brown. But anyway, a blonde little kid walks in. I'm white. I'm male. I walk in. You see me. You know what about my culture? You know what about my experience? You know what about what I need to see to feel like I'm included? Because apparently race and culture are just like this, and I'm putting my fingers together. They're just like this, if you say so.
So we often wonder why students of color do not participate in clubs or activities in schools when those spaces are predominantly white.
Because they're racist. They need to see people who look like them to feel comfortable. What if a white kid said that? What if a white kid in a predominantly non-white school said that? Would you have any empathy for that kid, I wonder? Would that kid's complaint make any sense to you, I wonder?
A more inclusive school might ask the question, what could we do to make these spaces more reflective of our school demographics?
Wait. What can we do to make these spaces more reflective of our school demographics? I don't know. What percentage of Black culture should be in the school? What percentage of Latino culture should be in the school? What percentage of white culture should be in the school? And how would you represent that? Okay.
How do we make kids feel more accepted?
I don't know.
And to be clear, DEI work is not just about race.
No. It's not all just about race, but it all begins with race, right? Take away the inclusion, take away the equity. It all starts with that first letter. Discrimination. Oh, sorry, diversity. Now, it's not all about race, but race is required as a consideration, is it not? Johnny Hellcat, thank you so much. Scribe walks in. Hey, everyone, it's Dickinson. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I walk in the room, just pelt me with Dickensian novels of terribleness. Oh, yeah, Charles Dickens, here it comes. Thank you, Johnny Hellcat.
As there are intersectionalities with gender disparities, ability grouping, social emotional disparities, physical conditions that students may have that challenge students' abilities to feel welcome, safe, and included in the learning environment.
That's a dodge. All of that is a dodge. How did you open this presentation? What were your prime examples and complaints from your own childhood, first and foremost? Right. The race of the people writing the books you had to read. The race of the people writing the books that you read at home. You're associating culture and race. People who write books that don't look like you can't possibly know your experience, and on and on. Okay. This is the exact same function of the whole DEIB, JEDI, D ampersand, the whole process. Every extra letter you add on from that first original sin of diversity is just filler. It's just to dilute. It's just to distract for a couple of other D words. And that's what you're doing here. You're adding on all these other elements, all these other aspects of possibly a student's life or condition or whatever else to try to get away from the biggest problem of your pitch, is that you are focused entirely on race. And everything else, like adding a veterans ERG after you've listed off all the other ones, is just a way to dodge around and try to make it seem far more benevolent than it really is. Now, you already gave it away. You already showed your whole card.
So my role as the Director of Equity, Race, and Cultural Diversity encompasses all of those areas of focus. Although admittedly for me, the areas that create the most Freedom of Information Act requests are focused on our work with race and gender.
It's not all about race, but by the way, most of my time spent on race and gender.
What a crazy world we live in.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? It took this long. It took this long to finally decide as a country, or at least under the legal system, that assessing people on the basis of their skin color was unconstitutional. It's 1964. Anyway.
So our DEI efforts are currently focused on professional development for our educational leaders and teachers to develop the will, skill, and capacity to develop practices, not programs or initiatives, but practices that can be embedded into what we do on a daily basis, both personally and professionally, to reflect a stronger, more systemic approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion to better prepare.
Whoa. Okay. I thought he was going to take a pause there for a second, but I just want to go back and let's listen to some of that again, because that was a lot to take in. That was a lot to take in.
What a crazy world we live in. So our DEI efforts
are
currently focused on professional development.
Are focused on professional development. Okay, this is for a profession, teaching, professional development.
For our educational leaders and teachers.
Educational leaders and teachers. So basically teachers and principals, right? Okay.
To develop the will.
Develop the will. Develop the will. That's an interesting goal, to develop the will. Okay, so people come in without the, what? Strength, the fortitude, the courage to do this work. Develop the will. All right.
Skill and capacity.
Skill and capacity.
To develop practice.
Okay, so I need to develop the will, the skill and the capacity to develop the practices. So first I need to develop my own sense of self-righteousness in this thing, right? Then I'll be ready to develop the practices. Yes. Mike R., thanks so much. Systemic. Yes, I already circled systemic/institutional earlier in the stream, but yes, if I hadn't already, he just said systemic and would have covered it. Thank you, Mike. Yes. By the way, just as a reminder, what we have on the board right now, this is bingo card A as an affirmative action, collectivizes own demographic, systemic or institutional, childhood or family anecdote, diversity, equity, and inclusion, plays victim, contradicts own point or argument, free space, and a list. And I think I might be circling word salad here in a minute with this little speech, but we'll see. Thank you again, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Be fair. Everyone always fires at will. Poor guy. Yes. Oh, develop the will. Oh, Will. They get like Will. I was suddenly thinking of a character named Will, and I can't remember where it was from. Because part of me wanted to say Treasure Island, but that's Jim Hawkins. Jim Hawkins. Will something. Anyway, whatever. There's a lot of characters out there named Will. And Will's always fired upon. Sure. Okay, so anyway, develop the skills, capacity, and will to develop the practices.
Not programs or initiatives, but practices.
Practices. Not programs or initiatives, but practices. Okay.
That can be embedded into what we do on a daily basis, both personally and professionally.
Personal and professional practices. After I've developed the will, skills, and capacity. All right.
To reflect a stronger, more systemic approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion to better prepare our students for the real world outside of our bubble.
You mean the bubble you're constructing with your practices by taking DEI ideology and integrating it into your personal life, your professional life, and developing the will, the bravery, the courage to do this? Okay, so yeah, it's professional development, but then also, let's be honest, then passing it on to the students in an indoctrinative fashion, right? You said earlier that calling it indoctrination was a mischaracterization. And now you're saying, oh, we have to develop the will, the skills, the capacity for practices, not programs or initiatives, practices in our personal life and otherwise to then pass on to the students. That's not pushing a worldview onto the children. That's not indoctrination. I mean, if you say so.
Speaking of the bubble, I think might be a good time for me to talk about the importance of this work in communities that do not necessarily have cultural diversity.
Oh, well, how do you know a community does not have cultural diversity? What tells you about a community that does not have cultural diversity. I'm just going out on a limb here. But if our speaker walked into a neighborhood and saw nothing but white people, would he think that that community doesn't have cultural diversity? I'm assuming he would, right? You know, even though the community could be made up of people from Ireland and Poland and Russia and Germany, but on site, at least, you probably couldn't tell much of a difference because obviously, you know, cultures align with skin color, right?
Let's be realistic here.
Okay, let's be realistic. I love being realistic.
As parents, we have every right to choose the type of community we want to raise our children in.
Right? Perhaps. Ability, not necessarily. Sometimes you go where the houses are cheapest.
However, if we choose communities that lack diversity,
well, you already defined diversity, and you defined culture as a, yeah, we already, okay, yeah, lack diversity. If I choose a community that lacks diversity,
that means that our children will lack the awareness and understanding of the world outside of that homogeneous community.
Oh, right. Okay. So if I choose a community to live in because I'm just that rich in today's market that I can just decide where I go, but the people around me look too much alike as to myself, I'm doing my child a disservice. Okay. So I need to see certain racial mixtures as good and other racial mixtures as inherently detrimental to my child's well-being. Okay, and the lesson that I'll be teaching my child through this process is what again?
So then when they are confronted with diversity.
Confronted with diversity.
What tools will they have to navigate those spaces?
Hey, sonny boy of mine, I want you to learn something. I want you to learn that everybody is an individual, and it doesn't matter what the color of their hair, their eyes, their skin is. You treat them and respect them as a person, because that's what you'd expect for yourself. Who you are, not what you are. Oh my God, what was it the parents' responsibility to instill in their child certain principles about the world? And is it the parents' right to do so as they effectively see fit? Does it matter what community I'm in? You know what? Here's the thing. If our speaker saw the neighborhood I grew up in, right, he would know that everybody there was exactly the same. Everybody there was exactly the same. Because everybody in my neighborhood growing up, as far as I can recall, was white. Oh, except for, you know, again, you got, I won't say their name because I don't know. But anyway, there was a Polish family down the way. There was a Jewish family up the street where my best friend lived at the time, right? There was an Irish family across the street from me. There were a bunch of white mutts all over the place. Who knows what their backgrounds were? And you know what? They were all the same. And we all got along, and there were never any conflicts. And I never had any lessons about treating people with respect for how they behaved and not what they looked like. I don't know, Speaker. I grew up in one of those detrimental communities that you mentioned, and here I am. Rock me like a hurricane. But of course, I'm guessing that if I were to speak to our speaker and express how I've expressed tonight, he would think that I am exactly the product of my environment growing up, that I could not possibly have any idea what it's like to be around other people who don't look like me or don't think like me, because I only ever saw people that passingly sort of had my skin color, but then I didn't assess people on that because they were individuals, because that's a silly way to go through life. But what do I know?
And I know what you're thinking.
Okay. Well, mind reading assumes motives. Don't even need to think too hard on that one. All right, what am I thinking? I just spelled it out, so you should be able to do it.
I'm a good parent. I've raised my children the right way, and they are raised not to see color or treat people differently.
Okay. I mean, I'll grant him that. That was kind of kind of what I was expressing. It is up to the parent. Okay, well, how do you know that that's wrong?
But my question to you is this.
I am waiting with bated breath.
How has that school of thought worked for our society thus far?
How has promoting the idea of assessing people on who they are and not what they are? Well, we're going to have a better idea about that in the coming months and years now that affirmative action is dead.
Even if you have raised your children this way, the unfortunate reality is this.
What is the unfortunate reality? If I have instilled in my child the idea of not assessing people on what they look like, but on who they are, what's the unfortunate reality?
Society and the social spaces that they will certainly be in will tell them that race does matter.
Yeah, no, I am. Oh, dude, I am absolutely aware of that. You know why? Because you're pushing DEI into schools. You spend more time with your Freedom of Information Act requests on race and gender. Who is making race important in society? Who is pushing race as a value factor in society? Who's pushing race as a value factor in literature? Might I ask? Oh, no, you're absolutely right. My child, should I ever have one, who I will attempt to instill with the idea, the principle of colorblindness, yes, I am sure that if I have a child, they will encounter the mindset that you are pushing here today. That's why I will prepare them for that by trying to instill in them the principles that I think, and I think our Constitution demands, we as a society express. Oh, golly gee whiz, you're absolutely right.
And that there are privileges that come with where you are on the racial hierarchy.
Oh, it's true. And affirmative action just kind of did away with some of those, but also privilege. Privilege is on the board. There you go. Privilege is on the board.
What's even worse is that the lack of seeing color means that you don't see individuals as people.
What? What is that? What the fuck is that?
I was wondering if that was going to come up. I was wondering if you don't see color, you don't see me was going to come up. You know what? If I see you first as a color, you're right. I don't see you as a person. I see you as a stereotype. I see you as an assumption. If I actually operated that way, that's how I'd see you. I would diminish your individual humanity by reducing you down to your skin color. But you are promoting the idea of seeing people as skin colors, first and foremost. Oh, but we don't focus completely on race. Racial identitarianism is poison.
And then you will not see the disparities that happen right before your very eyes.
Disparities, you say. And what do we say about disparities again?
So as a result, they are left as stereotypes about cultures, people who look different.
Whoa. Stereotypes about culture. Okay. Call me crazy. Or call me maybe. But weren't you the one at the beginning of this talk who were associating skin color with a culture that wouldn't understand you because the author was the wrong shade? You want to talk about stereotypes? What were you stereotyping by elevating authors or denigrating them on the basis of their race and their inability or ability to immediately connect with you because of your race? Can I circle contradict's own point or argument again? Yes, I think I will. I think that I just might. Are you kidding me, dude? We've been listening to you. Also, I'm going to circle white supremacy on the board as well, because that has been at least alluded to, if not outright touched upon. Ay, caramba.
And will make assumptions based upon what they see and hear.
Uh-huh. Yeah. What assumptions did you make about Charles Dickinson? What assumptions did you make about Malcolm X? What assumptions did you make about the culture in a neighborhood on the basis of the appearance of its inhabitants?
We see those experiences play out regularly in learning environments, and implicit bias and microaggressions.
Oh, microaggressions, implicit bias. Oh, that's on the board now too. Oh my gosh. We are so close to a couple of bingos. Oh boy. Microaggressions, implicit bias.
Regularly in learning environments, and implicit bias and microaggressions then become how we deal with people who are different.
Oh, like the microaggression of what? That someone's skin color tells you the quality of their writing? Like that?
I am a firm believer that DEI work in schools and communities builds empathy and awareness of the world that we live in.
Empathy? Empathy. By collecting everybody together under a racial stereotype? Oh, okay. I mean, if you say so.
As well as an acknowledgement of how we have gotten to where we are in society today. We are building our students' pride in a country that faces its past to construct a better future.
Faces its past. Well, I mean, as of today, to a certain extent, that is true. Because in the Supreme Court's opinion on affirmative action, they did bring up several points of the past, both judicial and cultural, to say, I think affirmative action runs counter to what we're supposed to be doing in this country. Yeah. No, we definitely face the past today. Let's see if we learn from it.
We want to support critical thinking and support diversity of thought.
You don't. You don't care about diversity of thought. You already know what people think. You don't need to ask any questions. You know, you can take the temperature of the culture of a space on the basis of the skin color of its inhabitants. You don't care about diversity of thought. You care about what is the color of the author of this book. You're not assessing Charles Dickens' work on the basis of his ideas, of his characters, of the situations he wrote about, trying to relate them to human experience in general or otherwise. No, Dickinson has nothing to say about any of this because he's white. You can't relate to that. You know that. To hell with that. You've got better authors back at home who look the part. Could I circle contradicts on pointer argument again? Yes, I think I can. Oh, man.
However, my fear is if we do not teach students, and in particular, white students, that systemic racism exists, then history will once again repeat itself.
Oh, okay, but we're not supposed to stereotype. But obviously, white students need to be told. They need to be told about racism. Specifically, white students. Oh, okay. All right. I mean, if that's your theory, we don't want to stereotype. We don't want to divide. DEI isn't divisive, guys. It's not indoctrination. Let's see. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Every pause, resting, I just got in trouble face. Oh, man, this guy is something else.
Listen, I'm a very proud veteran, and I love my country.
Okay, for clarity, I'm not laughing at the fact that he's a veteran. I'm just laughing at the weird karmic shift that always takes place. You've heard me say this before when talking about ERGs. They almost always bring up veteran status or a veteran's ERG as some kind of rebuttal or some kind of like defense for something. That is just bizarre. Okay. Not laughing at his service. I want to make that clear. I was just surprised. I think I brought this up earlier in the stream. Bringing up veterans in the course of defending DEI practices seems part and parcel.
But that does not mean that I also can't recognize things that have happened in our past that have created the landscape for systemic inequities.
Wait. Okay. Again, this is not to diminish his service, but bringing it up in this talk, argumentative non sequitur. Your veteran status has zero to do with anything you've been talking about. Why bring it up? Except as like, what, an argument to sympathy or argument to authority or something? Your authority is your experience in the educational system to this topic. what does your veteran status have to do with it? Anyway, circled argumentative non sequitur.
I also do not believe that teaching students about systemic racism means it requires me to make white students or white families feel guilty about being white.
Oh, no, but you just need to make sure that students, especially white students, are educated about the history in this country, right? No. I mean, you don't want to make them feel guilty. You just will make them feel guilty. Why bring it up? I mean, you already put the doubt to that statement with your previous statement about how specifically white students need a special education on these things. You already talked about homogenous communities, right? But you're not here to guilt trip anybody on the basis of their skin color. Did I just hear that? Wow. Okay. I mean, if you say so.
Challenging school districts and communities to celebrate the wonderful cultures and diversities that make them who they are does not have to be divisive.
Are you listening to yourself? No, it doesn't. You're right. It doesn't have to be. Except that DEI inherently is. You're the one making it so. And either you're not listening to yourself or you're lying to yourself about what you're saying, ultimately.
It's about recognizing that there are these differences in how we came to be who we are.
You don't care about the who. You're only talking about the what. What are you talking about? Differences in outlook? And how do you achieve outlook to other attributes of a person's makeup?
So that we can develop empathy and understanding and an appreciation for one another's cultures and backgrounds.
Sorry for all the pausing, but it's really one of those things where every statement just really, it signals something to me. Empathy. I talked about this at length in some of my older videos. Empathy is a sales pitch that is it's a very powerful one. Because what is empathy? Right? Empathy is one of the building blocks of humanity, of common experience, of being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. Compassion, right? Being able to identify with somebody else and their experience, their circumstance, their situation, and so on. We would not be where we are as a species if we did not, on average, collectively possess some kind of empathy one to another, where we're at least saying to ourselves, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? Empathy, it's a hallmark of someone being a semi-good person. And so when somebody says, I'm here to encourage or teach empathy, right? What kind of sales pitch is that? Well, you're not going to argue with somebody trying to promote one of the building blocks of human compassion and interaction, right? Except that empathy in this context, as I've often found, has very little to do with actually seeing yourself in someone else's shoes, but more as a shield against dissent. If I say this program promotes empathy, then for me to argue with that program, to argue with that initiative, would be for me to argue against one of the most common elements of human interaction and compassion. And that puts me on the losing side before I've even said a word. So when I hear empathy repeated in these arguments, it feels like a dodge to me. It feels like a shield. It feels like an argument against somebody else's character if they even dare to doubt, disagree, or dissent. But maybe that's just me. I don't know.
The difficulty is this. I think when you haven't had to worry about being included, seeing your culture, and experiences widely accepted and promoted, it's really hard to imagine why that would be so important.
Yeah, given the fact that I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood and I am white, I never felt excluded. I mean, except for, I was kind of small for my age and quiet and kind of shy. Oh, and I had glasses when I was 6 years old before I really had a chance to, socialize and everything. And oh yeah, getting picked on by all the other kids who, now that I think of it, they were all white too. Getting beat up in junior high by the bully who was he was white too. Being sort of ostracized by people because I didn't fit in. Gosh, I never had to worry about being included. I've never known what it's like to be alienated or left behind or betrayed or left out or marginalized. You're right. Gosh, if you grow up in an environment where everybody looks like you, obviously everybody gets along. That's why Donald Trump and Joe Biden are exactly on the same page. They're both white. That's why Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X were like this. They were just right there, right on the same side one to another. Yeah, it's funny how that works, isn't it? Oh, but you've read their books. You've read King. You've read Malcolm X. You know that they thought exactly the same about things. But because their skin color.
So for me, the work is not just about supporting a school district to develop the will, skill, and capacity to embed DEI practices into what we do on a daily basis. It's also about educating our school community.
Oh, yeah, passing it on. Will, skill, and capacity. Will, skill, and capacity. I don't know, is that a buzz phrase? Because he's repeated it several times now. Will, skill, and capacity. I might circle it, we'll see.
And supporting its growth and understanding of how what's happening in our schools can also positively impact the experiences of our community as we develop a deeper understanding of who we are and how to embrace the growing diversity of our schools.
Give me an example. I talked about this earlier today, and I've talked about this in the past. Okay, you spent the last 10 minutes doling out all the virtues and all the advantages and all why this, that, and the other. Give me an example of a DEI program in your school and how it has improved things based on the metrics that you've talked about. How has your DEI programs improved the demographic split of represented cultures or represented skin colors in your schools? Tell me what the statistics were before you instituted the program and what they were afterwards. I know I'm not going to get that in this presentation, but that's why I'll probably end up circling leaves out vital context, because for all of the bluster, he hasn't shown us anything.
And communities.
I'm going to back up a little bit. I cut him off.
Understanding of who we are and
who we are? Yeah, right.
How to embrace the growing diversity of our schools and communities.
Okay.
We want to see our students for who they are.
No, you don't care about the who. Well, except for the fact that you identify people on the basis of race. So race as an identity, therefore, I guess maybe you want to see them for who they are, big quotation marks. Yeah, okay.
And determine what they need to be successful.
Okay.
So I spend a great deal of time in our school community talking about parents and community leaders and about our work, and have been very, very well received thus far.
Okay.
And I hope that that continues.
What if it didn't? What if somebody brought an objection to what you have to push? What would you do? And not like some kind of crazy, unhinged something, but somebody just said, do you think it's wise to promote the idea of seeing one another on the basis of race and assuming a culture or a quality of life because of skin color? What if a parent said that at a student-teacher meeting or something?
The best part about those efforts is creating spaces where individuals can actually ask questions and challenge assumptions about what they are hearing about diversity, equity, and inclusion work versus what we are actually doing.
Oh, okay. Well, by all means, disarm me of my suspicions in the last minute.
This is about building a stronger, equitable school system and community, not about being divisive.
You keep saying that. You keep saying that. We have to teach students, blah, 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 especially white students. Obviously, this author couldn't see things the way I see them because of their race. You keep saying these words but I'm not sure you understand how they stack up against what you've said before those words.
So as I close,
Yes.
I want to remind us all about the purpose of public education,
Okay.
which isn't necessarily about what parents want or think their children should be learning.
Oh. Oh, okay. Well, how little input should parents be allowed to have in their students' education? Oh, okay. All right.
The goal is to help children fulfill their diverse potentials.
Oh. And diverse as defined by...
To enable students to become well-rounded.
As defined by whom?
Individuals, focusing on the whole child and not just the mastery of academic content.
You are not responsible for the whole child. Your mandate is the education of children. The whole child belongs, in so many words, to their parents and guardians. It's interesting how all of this revelation comes at the very, very end of the presentation. Interesting.
To prepare students to live in a productive life and to become good citizens while obeying the social and legal rules of society.
Oh, that's your job. And that's what DEI teaches? Is that what that is? Are you associating all of those positive things with DEI? Are all of those things the realm of the school teacher? Oh, okay.
It is my belief that diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts will help us all achieve those goals. Thank you.
Well, it's my belief that they won't, that they inherently drive wedges between us all on a basis that, again, I had hoped by this point in time we would be past. But as today's decision by the Supreme Court shows, and the reaction to it by large swaths of the population, there are lessons we still have a lot to learn from again. But at least it happened in a time where I could witness it. But anyway, with that, everybody, let's go to the bingo card. Let's take a look at where we're at. That is a packed bingo card. Remember, this is bingo card A. So if you have arguments for squares to be circled, please hold on to those for just a moment. I'm going to go over the card one more time by myself and see if I find any others that I missed in the meantime. And then I will take your suggestions. First, sales pitch for product or service. I mean, he played up his school district and the DEI programs and so on therein quite a bit. He named his school district and all that stuff. And yeah, you know what? I should have done it earlier, but I'll do it now. There we go. And as a result of that,
I had a dog, and his name was...
What?
I had a dog, and his name was...
Bingo!
Of course!
our first bingo. Let's keep going. Patriarchy. Strangely enough, he didn't bring up Battle of the Sexes or anything too much. So no. Weightless example. Boy, oh boy. Weightless example. This is a tough one because the whole thing was all over the place. I'm going to have to think about that one. Wage gap. He did talk about the disparities between rich and poor and socioeconomic stuff in different places and associated that in a little bit of ways with race. So, yeah, I think we'll go with that.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Right?
Yeah!
2 bingos. Let's keep going. Feminism. No. Marginalization. Certainly it was, if not stated explicitly, implied over the course of the presentation. Word salad. You ain't kidding. Yeah, I mean, that one part where I had to break it down minute by minute, word by word, because it was all over the place. Yeah. Self-vilification or wretchedness. No. At no point did I get a sense that he was making apologies or marking himself as part of the problem or something like that. So no, I don't think so. Attempt to coin new buzzword buzz phrase. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Will, skill, and capacity. Will, skill, and capacity. It seems perfectly reasonable to me.
Bingo. What?
Of course!
Our third bingo on the diagonal. Benevolent condescension. Yeah. You know, I'm not saying that white students and parents need to feel guilty. Uh-huh. And, gosh, with that...
Give me a bingo, silly. One bingo only, please.
Right?
Yeah!
Another bingo. Anecdote that probably never happened. The only anecdotes he brought up were those of his childhood growing up, and nothing that he talked about sounded outside the realm of reality based on his worldview. So I don't think so. I'm open to arguments otherwise. I don't think so. And lastly, leaves out vital context. Yeah, examples of success. Examples of success. He states all the problems that he can see walking into a school. Okay, well, he's been running a school or a school system for a while now. What success stories has he had? Right? How has he improved the cultural demographic split as represented in the school? How has he improved the population of the school so that people feel included by seeing the kinds of people that look like them there? No examples? I don't think so. All right, so that is the card as I have it. It's pretty full, guys. Holy cow. I think there's a couple we can't overcome, but I'm open to arguments. So, patriarchy, weightless example, feminism, self-vilification or wretchedness, an anecdote that probably never happened. I could see there's probably a weightless example out there somewhere, but I'll wait and see. If you have an argument for squares to be circled, please put it in the chat. If you already did and I missed it, please just repost it. And let's go. I'd circle word salad, says Mr. Tickle Trunk. I already did. There were 2 points where I couldn't follow. Yeah, got that one. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Let's see. Advocates Diablo, Scribe, can we circle the O in bingo? Because that is the shape my mouth was in shock at the number of contradictions this entire time. It's irregular, but I'll allow it. I don't think we've ever done that before, but sure, why not? It doesn't count as a square. It'd be weird if it did, but there you go. Let's see, and people are talking about Happy Gilmore in the chat. Well, chat, I love you. Super Koopa, people like our speaker are increasingly setting race relations back by decades. It makes me embarrassed to be black. Well, it's got nothing to do with your race, but yeah, this kind of thinking, this is the kind of stuff that's being talked about today in response to the affirmative action decision. These same arguments. And here's the thing, these same arguments were the defense for keeping affirmative action. The same kinds of things our speaker promoted in this talk from a year and several months ago or whatever. If you listen to the lawyers during the oral arguments for these cases last October, pretty much in line, pretty much in line. And then if you read the majority opinion today, a lot of what our speaker had to say, in spirit, if not in fact, was knocked down as unconstitutional, at least in the context of affirmative action. But again, DEI in schools, it's kind of pretty much the same thing. Lexi Mads, I'm starting to wonder if these people know about this stream and are trying for a full card. Like, how many can I hit? I don't know. But we did hear about, what was it the other day when somebody talked about, oh yeah, we're watching the Sunday stream, and the guy talked about how they employed a bingo card in their allyship practices, and he came across a bingo card that was kind of about DEI at one point, and I was like, was it me? Oh, tell me it was me. Smudge, him referring to childhood experiences which were not persuasive, relevant, could be considered a weightless example. No, I don't think they were weightless. His childhood experiences with the books and what he was or was not taught in school and so on, those were on point for describing his worldview and how he values people's skin colors in relation to both thought and culture. So for the sake of his argument, for the sake of his argument, let me underscore, those were not weightless examples, in my opinion. Now, if you've got a more extensive argument elsewise, by all means, but that's where I'm coming from. Yeah, as far as his presentation was concerned, those opening anecdotes about his childhood were completely on point. Obviously, he contradicted himself left, right, and center as we went, but the core of his argument, those examples worked, so to speak. Let's see. Advocate, his childhood was on point as far as argument. Right. As far as the presentation was concerned, that was the core. That was to the top, my bingo card all of a sudden. That was bizarre. Did it blank out for you guys too? Oh, is my connection dying? Am I roboting by any chance? StreamYard's telling me my stream connection is wobbly. Let me know in the chat if you're noticing any persistent distortion. Oh, it did. Okay, yeah, I had a major drop in my connectivity there for a second, guys. Just got quiet for a second. Okay. All right, well, I might wrap this up sooner rather than later as a result. But yeah, something just, the matrix just glitched slightly there. So apologies for those of you at home. Okay, any other arguments for squares to be circled? Ebony Williams, you were silent for a second and it sounded like you sped up. Okay, yeah, that was internet, that was StreamYard, dunno. Something on my end, but I don't have any control over that, so we'll see how it goes. Any other arguments, guys? We got a pretty full card here, all things considered. I'm actually kind of surprised. For your average DEI talk, we covered a lot of bases. But yeah, I think I might call it here. So we have, everyone, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 bingos on the board, which is pretty good, plus a WTF pointer argument. And that's where we're going to hold that there. So everybody, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm probably going to repeat that a couple of times now. Oh, by the way, if you didn't know, I have a Discord. And if only I had my Discord available on my screen right now. Why did I close that? I don't know. Let's find out. Did it crash too? Maybe it did. All right, well, let me bring up my Discord real quick and let me give you guys a link to the Discord. If you're not already a member of the Discord, you can join right now. The link I'm going to put up into the chat will be good for 1 day because it is a very exclusive club. But unlike affirmative action, I don't judge you so much on what you look like because I have no idea what you look like, but I judge you on your attendance and attention. And you click on that link, you'll find yourself on the Say Hello channel on the Discord server. All you have to do there is to, well, say hello, but also say the secret word for this stream that tells me and the moderators that you actually watch the show. And then you can become a full member. Today's secret word is empathy. Yes, the magical word of empathy. Both a sword and a shield, a cudgel and a blanket, depending on how you decide to use it in your argumentation. But with that, everybody, thank you so much for joining me, as I already said, and I'll say again. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Everybody who donated either to myself or to the sloppily and late provided links, thank you again, Derek LaRue, at the top of the chat box for the fundraisers for Maddie, Alyssa, Moonshock, and Angry Illinoisian. Please, please take a look at those if you have the opportunity. Share them out on social media. Otherwise, appreciate your help with that. And yeah, for those of you listening in the future, let me know what you thought about this show in the comments below. Please leave a like on the way out if you would. I am told by some strange presence out there that it helps with the algorithm, whatever that is. And everyone, I hope you have a good rest of your Thursday. I hope you have a great Friday ahead of you and holiday weekend if you get to celebrate the holiday and our Independence Day next Tuesday. I hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.